Let go or be dragged.
Well, being dragged can be fun for a while, but after that, it's good to
Well,
know there are other options.
yeah. Let's see here. Boom. Yeah, there it is. Okay. Let me tag you real quick. Give people time to get in. Yeah, there it is.
Fabulous.
That it. Let's see here. There you go. Yep. All right. All right. Here we are. The Soul Ghost Hunters radio show. And I'm thinking that tonight you probably have a really good story to start everything out with.
Well, it's nice to set the stage with a story, isn't it, Todd?
Hmm.
Yes, we do have a story. So welcome to all our listeners and observers or viewers. It's always great to know that people come back and visit us each week. And we like to set the stage with a story for those of you who are new. And the idea with the story is to present a theme. And this is a general theme that we explore further during the program. So today's story is a Zen story. It's about a traveler. And this traveler was walking far and wide through mountains, and he came to a town. And he found a wise man in the town. And he asked the wise man a bit about the place. He said, I like this place, but I don't know if I want to stay here. And so the wise man asked the traveler a few questions. He said, well, what was it like where you come from? And this traveler said, well, where I come from, it was really hard. I encountered a lot of people who were very hateful and negative, and I just really didn't have a very easy life in many ways. So I decided I needed to leave. And the wise man nodded and listened to the man's stories. And he said, well, I honestly don't feel like this place is for you. And all I can do is be honest. And so the traveler said, well, thank you very much. And he went on his way. He continued hiking through the mountains to see what else he could find. By and by, a second traveler arrived in the same community and encountered the same wise man. And he also had the impression that the place was very welcoming, and he thought he might like to stay. And so he said to the wise man, I wonder if there is space for anyone new to move here, to stay. And the wise man asked this traveler what it was like where he left. And this traveler said, well, where I was, I had friends and I enjoyed the environment. People were kind enough, but part of me felt like I had outgrown it, like there was something that was missing in my life. And so I felt like I had to let go of certain things in order to make room for new experiences. And he continued to tell this wise man some other stories. And the wise man said to him, I honestly feel that you will be comfortable here, and it would be wonderful to welcome you into our community. And so, if we reflect on this story, there are a few things that might stand out to you. What stands out to you, Todd?
I love the way you start these things out. The paradox of it all. It's,
Yes.
been apparent to me since I reawoke in 2011 that the universe has a paradoxical way of teaching things. And I was just thinking tonight, I took a little walk after my last show, and I was thinking, God damn, everything's upside down. Everything's inverse, but it's really not. It's just that we've attached to this one thing. Then we see the inverse, like standing on your head, and go, that's true. So these fuckers over here weren't true. But the reality is the truth's in the middle. And it's a trip.
Mhm.
It's a trip.
Life is definitely a trip, and depending on at what stage of the trip you come out of it and recognize different things about it, that depends how long the trip lasts and what kind of a trip you experience.
Yeah. And then what happens is you break through, you bring them to the middle, and then there's a whole new dimension, which is,
Mm,
I guess, what we're doing collectively. Coming into
exactly.
this new space where, because of the fact that we integrated both of them, we step into a space of an unknown, really.
Mm. So very true, because every moment is fresh and new, isn't it? We are invited to see something valuable, a blessing, an opportunity, a stepping stone. And in that story, there are many ways to look at it, of course. But one of the ways you can look at it is to recognize that no matter where we travel in life, we bring ourselves with us. And so, how we experience life wherever we are is not based on external conditions or circumstances or people around us. It's very much related to our own filters, our own perceptions, our own belief systems, those things that we adopt as filters. And we're invited to work through those, grow aware of them, and only then do we get to know ourselves and do we expand into new opportunities, new possibilities. So I really love that story because many people have lived in more than one place. And it's quite common to not like something about where you are. It could be your relationships, could be your workplace, could be your community, where you live, your landlord. And often people have the assumption that if they move somewhere new, then everything will be fine. You know, the idea of the
Mm.
grass being greener on the other side.
Exactly. Water your own grass. Yeah, no,
That's
that's
right.
true.
Exactly. So that sort of sets the stage for some of the films that I would like to explore today. And we also, of course, like to put the context to the story in terms of expansion of human consciousness and the idea that there are a lot of changes going on in the world. And we have choices about how to experience those changes. And the movies that have been suggested this week will invite us to do just that. So the first one that comes up on the radar this week is one called Transcendence from 2014 with Johnny Depp. Do you remember that film, Todd?
I watched it. I can't remember it right now, though. Remind me.
Well, if you watched it, this is good. Uh, it is a film about technology and AI. And it's a film that many people might say now, oh, that was 11 years ago, was viewed as a bit of a program because it was putting some ideas into the minds of people about negative consequences that could unfold based on AI getting out of control. And in the context of the movie, Johnny Depp's character has a lot of insight, knowledge. He's very intelligent and he's doing some very interesting research. And there are some events that happen, I won't give everything away, that um, are life threatening for him. And through the course of the movie, his physical body deteriorates. But the idea is that the other characters want to preserve his brain, preserve his consciousness, so that they can still use the intelligence that he has. And the movie unfolds based on the consequences of that and invites questioning about ethics. You know, should we or shouldn't we do certain things? And what are the possible negative consequences of making certain choices? So it is sort of a catastrophic kind of film on some level, but it also prompts a lot of questioning about the whole concept of transcendence. What does it mean to redefine normal? What does it mean to move consciousness from one body to another body? And does that body have to be human? Could it be robotic? Could it be mechanical? And is that something we should be doing? Does this jog your memory a little bit?
No, it doesn't, but the concept of it does. And so to me, what I get from it is, with all the different narratives and stories and histories and bullshit histories and so on, um, there's a lot of looshing. People talk about vampirism. These are
Mm-hmm.
things that are in our field. These are things that are part of us.
Mm,
So it's interesting to listen to the storyline because, on one hand, yes, it's about transcendence, but on the other hand, it's about those energies that are observing it, you might say, that are trying to gain something from it with no regard for the consequences of interfering in the natural unfolding of the universe. So it's kind of strange. It's a very good pick, I would say. And I would say in a micro, macro kind of relation that that's what we're going through. It's,
Mm,
you know, it's really come down. So, I don't remember the specifics of the movie, but as I feel into the storyline that you're giving me, my interest would be would be the character that Johnny Depp was. Like, where
mhm.
was his head? Was he in
Yes.
it? You know what I mean? Like, this what's coming at me is not bothering me, or like Jesus mode, basically. But no, that's interesting. That's a very good metaphoric, I think, for what we're going through collectively and individually.
Mm. Well, one thing I find is a curious synchronicity was the same year another movie came out by Luc Besson called Lucy with Scarlett Johansson. Are you familiar with that one?
Oh yeah, very familiar.
Some people have seen that one more than once. So, do you see a connection or a contrast between those two films, other than the gender of the protagonists in both films?
Well, yeah, I see. Well, no, that's a very good point. Great, great. Yeah, there's an inverse between the genders. There's also an inverse between what I just said, what I got from the storyline you told me from the previous movie, where if you look at Lucy, the the story is told essentially from the individual, from the source, you might say. The previous
Yes.
one, it's more about the energies coming at him, right? And there's a few other movies like that, like Powder. I can't remember. There's a couple more I can think of, but I can't remember the names. Oh, John Travolta was one of them.
We're going to talk about that one today, so hold back on that.
Phenomena. Is that what it was called? But
Yes,
yeah,
phenomenal.
so
A little
where
late.
where where the Lucian energy is the focal point, because that's what it is. It's a Lucian energy saying, I want to tap into this. I want to know more about this. It's like when Einstein died and they took his brain out and examined it, right? Or Secretariat, if you're follow horse racing, like the greatest horse that ever, I mean, it just killed it. But his heart was three times bigger than everyone else's. But what did that really tell them? But what it shows metaphorically. So I think it's a very good contrast, a very good integration of polarities, those two movies, because one's seen from the core and one's seen from that which is, you know, receiving that, and how we respond to that. And so you
Mm,
can see that human element in that first movie. And in the second movie, it's like that human element doesn't matter. It's like the Matrix on steroids because, it's going down. And it's just truth. It's just like reality hitting everyone in the face. Like when she goes into that room with those scientists and all those people, like Morgan Freeman and all those people, and she just starts going boom, 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 boom. Yeah, very good. Yeah, very good.
I'm glad you notice a contrast, and it stands. What you point out is quite important and relevant in my mind also. Uh, but you can also expand a little bit on that because Lucy, the story does come from her, and she's sort of the source, which is interesting. But there is more of an altruistic angle in that movie as well, because she's curious about what's happening to her, but she contacts the character of Morgan Freeman, who is this research scientist, because she wants to provide whatever information she can to better humanity. So she has the feeling that things are going to go in such a way that she might not be there forever. And so she wants to make sure that the wisdom that is available through this process is accessible to people to help better understand the whole idea of consciousness. Whereas in the other film, the one with Johnny Depp, um, there isn't altruism there at all. There is very much self-interest that is the motivation to keep the information or his consciousness in sort of an AI form. And not everyone who knows him agrees that that's the best idea either. So you have those contrasting approaches as well that offer food for reflection. Again, there's no right or wrong here, but I find it's very useful to remind ourselves as multidimensional beings that there is no strict timeline available to us. We have multiple pathways we can follow. There is the pathway of love and appreciation and, universal principles, unity. And then there are other pathways which can take us down slippery slopes and other experiences. And so I found it quite remarkable that those two movies came out the same year with two different perspectives that were so different, because sometimes people are drawn to drawn more to one movie than the other. And some people might not even notice one and might notice the other. So that I found quite interesting.
Well, the universe is a genius.
Of course,
What year was that? What year was that? 2014?
2014.
Okay. Okay. So, if you look at the first movie, it's like, to me, it's like metaphorically representing the realm, right? Like the individual has no choice. That, are hoarding esoteric knowledge. You might put it that way. They want to keep Johnny Depp for themselves, kind of thing, right? And if you look at the second movie, to me, Lucy, she exemplifies each one of us. And as some people have said in certain narratives, 2,000 years ago, there was one Jesus, whatever years ago, the Buddha, there was a Kuan Yin, there was this, there was that. And now there's a whole bunch of us. So there's a
Mm,
really wild kind of proposition when you think about Lucy, and that we're all Lucy,
mm,
with the kind of the background of the first movie, where it's told more from that which has been presented to us that we know is an illusion as the days go by. And with that, the Lucy aspect is turning on in us, which is wild,
mm.
wild. And the other thing I would say too, and just give props to my brother Ty Hudnall, because he said something to me one time, and I think I told you before, but he said, it's a real download when it's immediately shareable. Like
Yes.
there's no filter that it has to run through. And so that's what you brought up about Lucy, is that she knew, because she was tapped in to that intelligence. So she knew
Yeah.
where it was going. She may not have known how it was going to get there, but she knew where it was going. So she said, "Hey, let me give you this information."
Mm,
That's a true download. That's a true download. When you're willing, I'm not say willing because it sounds like judgmental, but when you just let the conduit go, you just let it flow through the chakra, so to speak, and you just give it out there as quick as it comes in. That's a powerful
mm.
proposition. That's a powerful force. And I think the point about Lucy to me is, one soul doesn't just affect this earth, it affects the entire universe.
Mm.
Like, those that the perspective that was promoted, you might say, in the first movie, is no match. It's like a fly on an elephant's ass.
It's a stepping stone, isn't it? I love the points that you're making too, because it's so expansive. Both of them can be looked at in many different ways, but Lucy is one that's inspiring because it is sort of like a flow. It's like turning on a tap and the water just flows. She lets it flow and she flows where it guides her. She just listens to intuition, and that's what we're all invited to do, regardless of what crazy things might be going on in our lives. We are all getting direct downloads. The question is, are we listening, and are we letting go of the filters? Are we allowing ourselves to move through the filters, grow aware of what's beyond the filters? So there are many messages that we can find in movies that might be 15 years old, 10 years old, because the same narrative is flowing through everything. But it's our consciousness, our state of awareness that allows us to tune in to certain narratives or certain frequencies or bandwidths that are available in every film, every book, everything around us. And that's one of the things I find quite noteworthy.
Yeah, and it's like you said, you look back at a movie from 2014 or two movies, and you have the greater vision, basically, of the loop. So
Mhm.
so the movies or and the movies are metaphorical for our past life in this incarnation, otherwise. Let's just say this incarnation, previous experiences. And
Mhm.
they take us to a point of a higher revelation, right? I mean,
Mm.
so it's that's a really good point about these movies. It really is. And I think the thing about the Lucy movie is that even this is the best part to me because even when you get to the end, after all this stuff happens, and this is where I feel we're at, you step into a space of no, you don't know what you're stepping into. She didn't know what she was stepping into. She shared with the audience or the whatever, Morgan Freeman, all those people, whatever, the earth, everything she knew as she was getting it. So therefore it was a true download with with no obstruction, no ego, no nothing. It was that speed of and acceleration and level of coding. But if you would have asked her at the last moment before she tapped out, so what is this? She'd be like, I don't know. So that's what I feel like we're stepping into. We're stepping into like letting go of all these belief systems, letting go of all of our prejudices and biases and judgments. Just like it's a new way of evaluating. That's not the right word, but I mean it's just like it's not even about evaluating. That's the wrong word because it's like allowing the space into nothingness or into, let me say it this way, unknowing. You just don't know. You don't
Mhm.
know. But at the same time, everything you've brought with you that's pure is still there. Every person, mother, father, I don't care the relationship, all of them. Okay. And all the things. So, you know, I don't even know what you have planned after this one, but those two together, I think that's a really, really powerful proposition. If you really think about those two movies and look at the perspectives, because there was two different polarities, two ends of the spectrum that tell the stories, but it's the same story.
Mm,
Or I would
exactly.
say this: the story is in the middle of both. How about that?
I resonate with both. And what you say is a great stepping stone to where we're going, because at the end of Lucy, we recognize we don't know where we're going next, but we were ready for it, whatever it is. And that's what we want to highlight about wherever we're at in our lives, wherever we live, whatever circumstances we're facing, we have the wisdom to move forward to take the next step, even if we don't know exactly where that is or where it's going to take us. And that's one of the messages that Lucy leaves us. And it is a great stepping stone to two more movies that are related for today's show. The first one is The Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Do you remember this one? 2004, Kate Winslet
Mm,
and
yeah.
Jim Carrey.
Well, Kate Winslet's my favorite actress. No, I do
So you
remember
will
that movie.
remember.
And I love Jim Carrey. Yeah, no, that was a great movie. Great movie. Great movie. Yeah, really, really deep. Yeah, and still,
Well,
those types of movies have ripples that just keep going and going and going, like an old memory. Showing you more, like we were talking about earlier.
mm, well, exactly. And I bring this movie up because, again, it's timeless, the themes that are coming up. And for anyone who's not familiar with it, there is a couple, and both of them want to forget the relationship that they had with each other. And so it's about emotional memory and wanting to make the conscious choice to erase these emotional memories. And it's a very interesting contrast to another movie that we will explore today, which looks at the opposite point of view. But the question is, can we erase emotional awareness? Do we want to erase emotional awareness? and what is really the underlying motivation of that kind of a desire. So these are some of the questions that come up, and I wonder what stands out for you about that movie.
Um, well, I think you said it. Um, Anything that's come into our awareness, we can't escape.
Mm,
And so at the end of the movie, or right before the shit happens, she says to him, can you, or like, why do you, can't you remove the hair from the soap in the shower?
yes.
Right. But, you know, you can't erase that. And it wasn't about him not having the awareness, you know, based on whose ever standard, hers, to remove the hair. Right. It was about her. So I'm I've always had, I've always struggled. I mean, I understand you have to have boundaries, but that's a temporary proposition. There are no boundaries.
Mm,
You know, you cannot detach from that which you were always connected to. So my point is about the hair and the soap, and you got two different perspectives. That's the polarities. This is what it's all about. You're coming to that
mm,
central point. You think you're on one side and you think you see another side, but you're really in the middle of observing both sides. You just over identify with one or the other depending on what level of evolution or where you're at in your life, you know. But my point is that, yeah, it was a almost surreal kind
mm,
of, for me, like a surreal kind of I guess download, you know, energetically speaking, that's what it came to. It wasn't her getting sick of him. It wasn't him getting sick of her. It was simply two people overemphasizing that which they were looking at versus looking at themselves. And there's nothing fucking wrong with that, you know? So I would
mm.
love to see a sequel to that because I think they would probably come back together and, you know, act like rabbits and reproduce energetically and otherwise at a high rate.
I love how you have this vision and it is possible that we could have a sequel. I also love how you point out the polarity because polarity is certainly one way to look at this film. You have the point of view of the feminine, the point of view of the masculine. Each has their own rationale for the decisions that they are choosing to make. And we do tend to overemphasize one aspect of ourselves or the other. It's quite common for people to be have more feminine energy or more masculine energy. It doesn't matter what the gender is. And so one way of looking at that movie is it prompts us to step back and reflect on our own inner balance. It's not just the narrative between the two characters and whether or not you can choose to forget someone you love. It's not about an external focus as much as the whole concept of love. Can we forget love? And is that even possible? There's so many philosophical ways to approach it, but I love that it again is a movie that's almost 20 years old, even more so really. And still it has the impact and it has relevance to the expansion of consciousness. We can simply choose to look at it in a different way, perhaps, than we originally did.
Well, you know, I really like Jim Carrey, and so there, if we go off the first two films, the paradox again of two other films, and actually the same actor in both films, Jim Carrey, and I'm talking about the Truman Show. So if you go to
Mm.
the end, if you go to the end of the Truman Show, he goes up those stairs and finds a door. And then they have that final scene, and he says, "Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever the fuck," and he leaves. He into a dark void,
That's right.
but he is smiling from ear to ear, right? And so, okay, what's the other movie? What was it?
The other movie is called The Father from
No, no,
2020 with
the one we were
Anthony.
talking about, the one you were just talking about.
The one I was just talking about was The Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless
Yeah, yeah,
Mind.
yeah. So same guy, same guy. He goes through this whole thing, gets to the end, all right, and what? She's gone, right? She's gone, and that's other than himself, the central point of his life. So here you have the same character, two different movies. They get to the same point
Mm,
because in the internal sunshine, right? He's walking through that door that's black. He's walking into the void. It's all gone. Nothing makes sense. He goes into it. The other guy is doing the same thing on the other side of the spectrum, and he's got a smile from ear to ear.
mm.
So that's what I was saying. Like it's weird to me because when you said the first two movies and then you told me about internal, then I thought, oh my God, it's the same thing at the ending. Because at the ending, that's what really hit me in the Internal Sunshine movie was as a man, I was like, oh my God, like the fuck? Where's the happy ending? And then you have this other guy who's the same guy who walks into the same space. And there is in that movie, The Truman Show, there was that scene with the woman that he connected with, right? Remember? They took her
Yeah.
away and all that shit. And so the same elements are there, the masculine, the
Mm.
feminine, yet the two doors that are one's in hell, one's in heaven.
Both
But yeah,
both avenues are always accessible to us, but it's interesting how we're conditioned to look for hell a lot more than heaven.
mm,
That's what we're conditioned to
mm.
believe exists that is more dominant. And I love that analogy you make with the Truman Show. That one wasn't specifically brought up by our listeners, but it's very relevant, and I love the comparison. The one that was brought up by a listener this week was called The Father. Have you seen that one with Anthony Hopkins, 2020?
No. Wait a minute. Wait, what was the storyline?
It's about dementia.
Who is the other actor?
Uh, Coleman, that's her
I
name.
don't. I think I saw
Olivia
it, but
Coleman.
huh?
Olivia Coleman plays his
No,
daughter.
yeah, I can't remember.
Well, the reason why we bring it up in relation to the other one is a little different because in the eternal sunshine of the spotless mind, there is the conscious choice to want to lose the memories, to erase the emotional awareness. Whereas in the father and the context of dementia, which many of our listeners may be familiar with because of loved ones with dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, generally we have the impression as an outsider that this isn't a conscious choice, that this is something that just happens, and that the mind goes through this process of forgetting on many different levels. And in the case of the father, there's this man, Anthony Hopkins' character, that is refusing all assistance from family and anyone. And he just wants to maintain his idea of normal. But of course, that is not happening for him because his dementia is kicking in. And he does his best to make sense of a changing world. And in this case, the film is presented through his perspective. So his sense of losing reality, disorientation, confusion, the camera is like his eye. And sort of like, when we see Lucy and the idea that she represents source and the perspective we get through that film is through her eyes. It's through Anthony's eyes, Anthony Hopkins' character in this one. And we have a central caregiver whose life is falling apart because she's doing her best to balance her version of reality and her father's disintegrating reality. And she's also losing her father, her idea of what her father was, and grappling with that. And this is something that many people are experiencing these days because of the widespread phenomenon of dementia. So you haven't.
I like this. I like this because the first thing I thought was kind of satirical, and I thought, well, this is our story.
Mm,
We're Anthony Hopkins, and the whole world doesn't make any fucking sense. And we're in our own world
Uh-huh.
and we're computing it within our own field and we're relying on it and saying, fuck everything else. This is my reality. This is my reality. And there's something to be said for that.
Mm,
Now, the other perspectives also kind of speak to our own sense of judgment and discernment and all the other things. But the reality is, he is God, you know, he is like all of us. We try to fit in. Oh, you know what I mean? And then he comes out, and it gets to a point, and he says, "You know, this is it. I'm trusting myself." There's a lot of elements into that storyline, um, but that's how I see it. Like you said, I think at the beginning, you were like he's holding on to his world, holding
hmm
on to his understanding, and I think that says a lot about what we've done. Many, all of us, yeah. I mean, all these crazy people meeting up in this crazy place, listening to this still small voice within themselves, or however you want to put it. So imagine that. We're just not,
mm,
it's just not advertised. We're all actually doing this, evidently.
mm.
But yeah, cool. Very cool. I'm gonna
Yeah,
have to watch that.
sorry.
I said I'm gonna have to watch that. I've said that to you like 5 times since we started doing this show, but I haven't watched a movie in 2 years. I don't know if I ever can again, but I like this. Good.
Well, I find one thing that stands out about this movie is the fact that Anthony Hopkins' daughter, played by Olivia Colman, is grieving her idea of the loss of her dad while he's still alive.
Hmm.
And you have this whole concept of death that is a widespread fear in culture. And uh, a lot of times people are living as if they're already dead before they get there. And this is sort of illustrated by that character because rather than appreciate her dad the best she can in the state he's in, she spends a lot of time reminiscing about who he used to be and who she had come to see as her dad instead of being in the present moment. And it's an invitation to us all to recognize not only what you're pointing out, we can all relate because we're all gods, we're all a generator, an orchestrator, and a destroyer of our own reality. But the whole idea of being present, appreciating where we are, whatever is happening, can be a very big challenge for people because we're so conditioned to focus on what is supposed to be happening down the road or reminiscing about what used to be rather than being right here, right now. And I feel like this movie is a wonderful illustration of that and an invitation to not only appreciate where we are, but also appreciate where we've come from and where we're going and how it's all together. It's all connected. How
Yes.
does that stand out?
No, no, yes. No, that's some deep shit. No, I'm tell you why, all right? Because all right, what you're saying in one way is the intelligence and the consciousness as it stands right now allows for us, if we choose, to see ourselves, most important, as who we are now, not who we were. And
Mm,
and therefore, simultaneously, we will see if we really do that, which we can, and that's what I'm speaking to. We'll see it in the other, and I think there's a lot. That's what you brought up about the daughter is important because what was she really dealing with there? You know? So it's not like one was pessimistic and one was optimistic. Okay, he was choosing, I would say, his higher self. She was representing the conditioning, the experience, the shadows that bring the gold. They're somehow or another they're both the same thing. And when you have the bloodline involved, particularly, in my opinion, the strongest connection in this room, in my opinion, is a mother and a daughter, right? But a father and a father and a daughter is very powerful too, father and son. But yeah, that's what I see. I see like this this contrast beyond the story, um, where these energies are meeting. And again, it's a bit ambiguous, but this is the essence and the beauty of art. And art, to me, true art, is when you bring those two together and then you enter that space that Jim Carrey entered in the Truman Show and at the end of Eternal Spotlight of the Mind, that void. And it's a beautiful thing. Stepping in that darkness is a beautiful thing. But yeah, another great connection. Yeah, I can see that. And with those characters, especially because of the blood lineage. I got six kids, and they're all different frequencies, but I can see the uniformity of it all. And why? Because it all stems from me, and I can generate that. So she generated concern. I'm talking about the daughter in the movie, the concern that I want to say regrets, the second guessing, the doubting, the human part. And he's over here going, I've been through that shit. I'm seeing angels and elementals. I'm just going to go in this world. And if y'all think I'm crazy, so what?
Mm.
Because I know this ain't the end. Beautiful symmetry to that. Seriously.
Mm. Well, I find with the father, I relate to that one on a different level as well, because last year I spent 5 months in Canada with my dad, who's experiencing what Anthony Hopkins was experiencing in this movie. And I, much like the daughter in the film, had to work through reorganizing living arrangements and managing things that my dad wasn't able to manage anymore. And I have great compassion and empathy for these characters, and also great compassion and understanding for my dad and his process, because what I see through that is the rebirth of his inner child. And he's in a place now where he is there almost every day. And it's a part of all of us that we often lose touch with. We become serious as adults and we tell ourselves that we have to do certain things, we have certain responsibilities, and we lose touch with that playful, spontaneous, childlike self. And in spending the time with my dad and assisting him the best that I could, I rekindled that part of myself that I had also lost touch with on some level. And I find that we sometimes forget that every relationship we have is a gift, and it's guiding us back to forgotten parts of ourselves so that we can recognize that we are all whole and complete. But it is through connecting with others that we remind ourselves of those things that we might forget. So I feel that's also worth mentioning.
Jesus. That was deep. No,
Mm,
you're right on the money. I mean, really. I mean, I mean, to me, what you just explained is a true merging. You merged your soul with your dad, and
mm,
he did the same. And it doesn't and it can't be explained or rationalized, in this human vernacular, in linear timeline. This is
mm,
some real shit here, and over the last 2 or 3 months, and this is weird. I About 3 months ago, I cannot, and I still can't uh, talk to my mom, my dad. I made peace. Everything is cool. Believe me, I'm good, man. That's the basis of my foundation. Is the acceptance of both of them. I'm not getting off tangent here, but you know, my point is that these connections. Oh, well, I've gained. a heightened respect for my blood connections. And I know that means something, right? And so like listening to your story, I mean that's deep because it's personalized. And you can feel it because the energy is different now. We can feel each other, right?
Mm,
So that's really deep. So it involves the like some people say, the thoughts are electric, the emotions are magnetic. So
mm,
there's something about bringing those emotions to a central point where there is no judgment or bias. Like this, what you're talking about with your dad? I mean, smile on your face. It was like, whoa. No, but real, really. And like you said, he reconnected you with your inner child. So, imagine a different scenario. Imagine, and understandably, everybody's been subjected to this human condition. The daughter walking in and the dynamics of this situation in regard to her father doesn't fit your life. And you just say, well, let me control this. Let me move this. Let me mold this a certain way and walk away knowing that I missed something, but I don't have to think about it. I mean, this is the kind of progress that we're making. And it's not about money in the bank, and it's not about, views, and it's not about, the traditional things that conventional wisdom or whatever you want to call that says we can appraise everything. It's these very soulful human actions, thoughts, and words, revelations, epiphanies occurring at the same time. And the last thing I want to say, which I highly commend, I'm not saying I'm anybody, but this is part of what drives me, is sharing that information. And like in the earlier situation about Lucy, when you have a real, it's not about, oh, it came in and now I can go share. It's not about that. There's no linear time. It's about getting to a state of awareness when you know what you hold in yourself, what you've self sourced, what you've been able to connect to and come into awareness with a universal, right? And you can share it. You're not holding anything back. You're just letting it out. That's a powerful thing. That's what I hear from your story, um, and that's what I got from when you talked about Lucy at the end, where she shares everything as quick as she can because she knows she's leaving. Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's not like a river flowing fast like a whitewater river. It's like a fucking tsunami. This is the kind of energy we have, and the human is very much involved in to be able to relate that type of experience um, as code in it that you can only get from being here, boots on the ground.
mm. And it also reminds us of an effective way to connect universally with humanity. And it's being able to tap into those deep emotions and to know that it's something that everyone everywhere can relate to. You know,
Mm,
sadness, love, grief, anger, this whole range. When you talk about your experience through this frequency spectrum, then you're connecting with people because inevitably they can relate on some level. They don't have to have the exact same experience, but it's that emotion that tends to bring people together when they're open and honest about it. And for me, the idea of the movie offered a bit of a stark contrast from my experience, but I could still relate to the contemplation that the characters went through, and I related to some of it. But there's also this assumption that when someone is deteriorating physically, that there's something wrong with that. It's something to resist. It's something to um, resist is a good word. Like people will want to prolong life, for example, because we are conditioned to assume that life is superior to
mm. A
death.
lot of people, a lot of people do that with pets.
Yeah. That's true. Uh, but I find that when you connect with an open heart to real life experience, then you don't see lack anymore. You don't see things through those filters. You you feel into everything being a manifestation of love and everything being an opportunity to see love morphing through different stages. And when you can tune in and find a state of acceptance and allowing, then you can move through the resistance that is conditioned to come up. And I find that that's one of the healing processes I've ever experienced.
Yeah. Well, it's like what came to me about a week ago, and I wrote a poem on our song, and it was, um, damn, hang on, I got it right here. I'm getting
It's
old.
right there.
The pain goes. The pain could be a different word. Pain could be a different word. The pain goes away when we find the shadow, but the
Mhm.
echoes remain till we dissolve the patterns. So I feel like this is a perfect scenario. These 4 or 5 months you spent with your dad, you're not the same person you were before you entered that space, right?
No,
And it's like being conscious of your second nature reactions, which are not natural. They're second
that's right.
nature reactions based on the experience and conditioning we've had. This is where I feel we're at. It's at a point where we cannot make excuses anymore. Now we can make excuses to each other, and we can project, and we can whatever the fuck, isolate and live in a cave. This ain't gonna happen. None of that's gonna happen. We're to be true and honest with ourselves. And this demonstration in Lucy, the end of Lucy's movie that you were talking about, and even in what I can hear in the story, and even in the Zen fable in the beginning, because there is a polarity involved.
Mhm.
To have the perspective of having gone to the other end and come back with what you already had and go to the middle ground, not go one to the, or not get stuck in, let's just say, the lower chakras, not get stuck in the higher chakras, meet in the middle, cut the bullshit. Because I can tell you, based on the way the energy is flowing, well, I'm just saying this for myself. This is what I'm telling myself. You don't have a choice, dude. Whatever it is, whatever presents itself, um, you got to bring it to the middle. There's nothing else you can do. And
Mm.
I don't know how I got on that, but
Just happened.
it just happened. Oh well, I mean
Like,
that story. But to me, that story is very compelling because it'd be different. It'd be different. I started talking about my parents, and a couple of years ago, after being 8 years and 6 years estranged, and my brother 8 years estranged, I went by the natural organic nature of the universe and what's happening to all of us. I reunified with them, all of them. They were all the shadow. Every blah blah blah. Right. And then for the last 2 3 months, I can't talk to anybody. I text them, but I can't talk to anybody. But at the same time, my love hasn't stopped. There's a new
mm,
intelligence taking hold. That connection is there. I don't have to prove it. I don't have to validate it. I don't have to convince anybody of it. It's there, and it speaks because that's my mother and my father. My mother and my father. That's me, right? So, and then of course, the branches from there. But I'm speaking obviously etherically and physically, my bloodlines. What? But this is that's it. If I had to go step into a space to be with one of them for 5 months, okay, I don't know if I could do that. Right? I'm not saying I couldn't, but I'm not saying I could. I'm just saying, whoa, that's a lot. that's a lot for anyone that's been in our field of frequencies, and we're no better than anyone else. I'm just saying anyone that's been thinking about us, thinking out of the box, and the people, the crazy people that we are. But that's a powerful thing. There's a lot to be said there, and the majority of that energy is exchanged without words. Your father taught you to be a child again without telling you.
That's very true. And 15 years ago, I did something similar with my mother who succumbed to cancer. I spent 8 months with her,
Mm.
and it was during a period where, again, she did not see things the way I see it. I had a radio show at the time, and I remember sharing a story about one of the guests I had on the show, and it had to do with immortality and light beings. And she was a scientist.
Those are
And
the mistakes we made 15 years ago trying to tell people.
yeah,
No, I'm
exactly.
sorry. I had to laugh about that. That's funny.
She proceeded to share with me the story of a scientific paper that had recently been released. So essentially, what I was experiencing would go in one of her ears and out the other. And I can totally appreciate that. But the 8 months that I did spend helping to care for her during a very difficult time in her health was a growth period for both of us. And I'd never regret doing anything like that. But I find it's interesting because the experience I had with my dad was completely different and yet also very valuable. And both of those are stepping stones to the last movie I just wanted to briefly bring up today. You mentioned it earlier called
And
Phenomenon.
let me just interject real quick. That's another perfect example. I don't know if you see it. It's a larger pattern, but it was two polarities.
Yes,
And you obviously the way you speak of them, you're right in the middle of both.
yes, I recognize that now. I didn't always see that. But it's a very valuable evolution of perception that I have developed. The movie Phenomenon that you mentioned a little earlier is a very good way to end the show today because it does sort of wrap things up. It is related to John Travolta and it came out in 1996. So, for people who aren't familiar with the movie, it's the oldest one that we're bringing up today. And you did mention it. So, I wonder if anything specific stands out to you, Todd, that you want to raise.
Well, there's no mistakes. So when I was 19 years old, uh, I flunked out of college after a year, and I went to work at the largest hotel, the newest too. It's like 1,000 rooms in Dallas, right? And and anyway, I went to work as a valet. Then I became a bellman. Then I became a doorman. And when I was a valet, one afternoon, everybody was a buzz. There was a big atrium, you know, like multi floors. You know, I mean, it was a big atrium, and there was three or four restaurants, and John Travolta's in the house, right? And I met a few other famous people, but this was like the coolest thing. So I ran into the atrium and I looked at him, and he was having like lunch, you know, at this little restaurant in the middle of the atrium. So anyway, I went back to work and you know running cars as a valet, going to get the cars in the parking garage, bring them back. Now these are like Bugattis, Mercedes, Rolls Royce. It's like high class stuff, right? So somebody hands me the ticket and it says Travolta, and it's got a BMW insignia on it and the keys, and I ran and get it, right? Now this was right in the beginning, I think, of his career. I was 19, so you know he's maybe a couple years, 3 years older than me, maybe. I think Welcome Back Cotter was on at the time. Grease might have, yeah, Grease had already come out, and so I pull the car up and I jump out of the car, and he's about my height. He's about 6'2", same build, and I don't know what I said. I said, hey, you know, here you go. And he gave me like $50, and he was like, hey, you know, we exchanged some words. It was it was it was a powerful thing, you know. And so anyway, because I saw similarities in him in Welcome Back Cotter, because I'm kind of like a big fucking kid, you know. And Vinny, whatever his name was in that show. Anyway, so then when I saw Phenomena, And I've seen it probably like 5 or 6 times, especially early on. I saw it maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And what I love about that movie, and I love about the energy of the character, what I love about the congruence that him and I had when I pulled his car up, uh, is that childlike wonder, that
Mm,
innocence, that purity, and not being pious. I'm not talking about that because, if you see another movie he made was where he was Michael, the archangel, and he was like smoking and drinking, but he had the same characteristics. Okay. But in
I
that
can.
movie, but you know what I mean? In that movie in particular, of course, it had to have that ending that it had because that's Hollywood. But everything to me is a consciousness. That consciousness was implanted, a remix of many other consciousnesses. And even though it went the way it did, it continued on. And it wasn't about the sensationalism. It
No.
wasn't about the rarity or the uniqueness of the individual. It was about the spirit of
Mm,
that consciousness that took physical form and planted a bunch of seeds, you know?
mm.
So that's what I got out of it. That's weird that I didn't think of that when I said phenomena earlier, but yeah, that was, that's interesting. There's no coincidences.
No, there's only synchronicity. And I love how you highlight the flash of light that he represents in this movie and how that echoes the flash of light that we all are, because he has this extraordinary experience, or what we're led to believe is extraordinary. And all of a sudden he experiences things like telekinesis, and he discovers this surprising genius within himself that he didn't know he had. And the government, of course, would like to observe him and has ideas of what these abilities ought to be used for. Um, but this playful side of him, the genius, is something we all have, but we often downplay it and we assume it belongs to someone else. We don't have these abilities. It's somebody else's experience. And when he gets diagnosed with the brain tumor, and he makes the call to make the choices that he does, he validates love, and he reminds us all that the most important thing is not what you can or can't do. It's not how other people perceive you or your usefulness, your lack of usefulness. It is about love and the impact that it has on our soul. And we have the choice to choose fear or love in a given moment, in every circumstance. And for me, the movie Phenomenon illustrates that very well. And it's an invitation, even 30 years after it came out, to reflect on the same universal theme that is still available to us in this moment as we expand into a different level of consciousness. And the reason we've expanded as far as we have is because we've made the choice to choose love over fear.
Yeah, through all the, through it all,
Through it all.
even up to the last moment. There's two things that stand out to me in that movie. In sorry, carbonated water. What and they're kind of related. Well, one thing is what you just talked about. That was the biggest impact. Well, because I'm a romantic. I'm a Latin. I'm passionate, and love. You're right. Love is that's it. Period. And I actually had this thought maybe an hour ago, hour and a half ago. I took a walk and I was having some things run through my head over my life, like the whole time, 63 years, right? And the decisions that I'd made at the level of awareness that I had in the name of love, right? It was a really cool transmission. But the thing about that movie, and there are other movies like it, but that one I think is more impactful because of the superficial, right? The story. I don't mean superficial, take anything away from the human experience, but I just mean this was soul energy. This was soul energy from his partner, right? I believe there was a child involved, okay?
Mm,
But still, the energy of so when the shit hit the fan, where did he go? He went home.
mm,
And home for him and the physical experience was in that house with her, right? And that was it, right? And so that's one thing. To me, that was very magical. And then there's a scene in the movie, and I don't remember. I think I, I think a couple of guys come from like a university to talk to him, or I don't even think it had gotten to that point yet. I don't think it had gotten public. Somebody came over, and he was on her land, and he was walking, and there was like a ravine, and he goes, "Oh, there's a vortex here. Can you feel it?" You know. So, for some reason, that really struck me. And then, of course, the end. But to me, it's the same language. It's the same magic. It's a fucking real. And you've experienced, I've experienced, we've all experienced it. We haven't talked about it enough, and we haven't connected the dots enough. Not in a bad way, and not in judgment. But this is real. All this other bullshit's not real. And the basis of it is the ending of that movie. So it wasn't about somebody dying. It was. It was not. It was somebody choosing, well, I would say like the Trinity energy. He chose what he wanted as a God that he was with her and transitioned into the next space. So imagine if that occurred and there was no element of time, linear time. Well, she's right there with him on the every step of the way. It just doesn't look like that on the way it was laid out to the human perspective. Yeah, I love that movie. Love that movie.
Hmm. I'm so glad you were able to share some of the personal experience related to it also, because it really makes it more impactful for everyone, and we can connect with you on a different level, and it invites other people to reflect a little more on how they relate to movies and books that come into their awareness, because there's often more than one reason. You can tell yourself you like a particular actor or actress, or maybe the theme you heard about resonates, but quite often, there's far more going on than meets the eye, and it's a lot deeper than that. And that's part of why this program has arisen and comes to be, because we live in a time where people are reaching out for deeper connection to people, a deeper understanding of why we do the things we do. And this is part of why we're here. So thank you everyone for joining us this week and for sharing your feedback, your suggestions of other movies you might want to look at or other books. And we look forward to reconnecting with you soon, don't we, Todd?
Yes, of course. Yes, absolutely. Same time next week, same bat channel, same bat time, right?
Sounds good.
Same ghost time.
Until
All
then.
right.